Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to Essential Issues Weekly, where I talk about DC Comics 1 week after their release on the Ultra tier of the DC Universe Infinite subscription service. In each installment, I pick an assortment of comics to talk about as a DC fan and also explore what, if anything, they have to say about the essential issues of real life. Now, warning, full spoilers for everything that I talk about. Be aware this is your first and only warning that many spoilers lie ahead. Right now, we're taking a look at comics originally released to the Ultra tier on December 13th, 2023, and I ended up looking at fewer comics than I initially thought I would. In particular, I skipped out on Speed Force. I mean, I did skim through Speed Force. I'm a huge Flash fan, but the art style is just clearly, and just the storytelling is just going for a younger audience, not taking threats really seriously, and just kind of having a fun, playful attitude, and that's just not for me as much as I love Speedsters and The Flash, so I don't really have any comments beyond that about Speed Force. But the first book that I do have a few things to say about is Outsiders #1. Now, the concept of the Outsiders as a team has gone through many different iterations over the years, often having some connection to Batman. I really enjoyed a run where kind of Nightwing instead was at the lead of the team, but this seems to be a fresh take on the concept with almost no connection to Batman, it's, at least not technically. The main characters kind of leading the book would be Batwoman, Kate Kane, and then Luke Fox, who used to be Batwing and maybe still is kind of operating with that tech. He is the son, if I am not mistaken, of Lucius Fox, and he's bankrolling this new version of the Outsiders, which also recruits a character named the Drummer, whose powers I'm still a little bit unclear on. But the thing that's drawing me into this book right now is that the fact that it's using a bunch of like third tier, almost easily forgotten superheroes in the DC universe. Yes, I know Batwoman kind of had a short-lived TV show, so she's certainly not this unrecognizable person, but as far as like for me and the characters that I care about, I don't care about any of these characters, never even heard of the Drummer. And so the idea of giving them a book that focuses on them does interest me a bit. Why is that? Because they specifically seem to be taking this opportunity to give a fresh take to these characters themselves, to redefine them, to be a character-oriented book even. And also the concept, instead of going out and doing like Black Ops type missions, slightly morally questionable missions, which is what the Outsiders teams, if I'm not mistaken, have done in the past, these aren't even taking on like missions going up against supervillains. They're almost doing what the Vigil, another book that I was really enjoying, seem to be about, which is exploring the dark corners of the DC universe and seeing what's there, and then dealing with the potential threats that come from that exploration. But this is more of a broad, I think, look that's going to pull more from maybe DC's actual history and continuity. That's what they seem to be teasing. And so I'm very interested in that because I'm someone that's been a DC fan for a long time and enjoys getting my tendrils into the world and getting to know the world and its history over the years, just really kind of committing myself to a single comic book world continuity, and DC is my continuity of choice. And so the idea of a book that's going to really be kind of like archaeology. They even use the term archaeology, I think, in the promo or maybe in the script itself, but that's more of what it's about. It's like going and exploring the DC universe and taking on the challenges there, which are often not going to be, maybe never, some mustache-twirling supervillain, but rather some ancient artifact or something like that they have to deal with. And so there's elements of the kind of interplay between Kate Kane and Luke Fox that make me think, okay, this could be some interesting character-driven type stuff. I look forward to getting to know these characters as this current creative team chooses to iterate on them and present them. So anyway, it's definitely got my attention right now. I enjoyed the writing style of the first issue, and I definitely plan on giving at least one more issue a try, and that's Outsiders. The next book I read was Batman Santa Claus Silent Night #2. I don't think I made any comments on #1. I wasn't sure if I was going to, talk about any of these kind of like holiday, Christmas themed type comic books, because usually that kind of story is not going to have a real impact on the greater continuity of the DC universe. It's just a little seasonal snack. And I think that's certainly the case here, although they are taking it more seriously. I think holiday issues, Christmas issues of the past just had a lighter and silly tone, but this one they're going for something much more serious, where they propose that Krampus is actually an evil demon that does exist and has strong ties to the actual Santa Claus, who is not Nicholas of, I believe, Greece is where the Saint Nicholas, the actual historical person Nicholas, comes from, but is like based on some kind of, I don't know, Viking folklore or something. So he's a bit more of like a brawler, you know, than we've known any version of Santa Claus to be. And so there's a real threat of what Krampus is doing and really putting Gotham in danger. And I think it's, you know, fine. I like that they're giving a more serious vibe to this kind of holiday Christmas type crossover. But I mean, as someone who knows that Nicholas is actually a historical person, if they're going to say, oh, we're going to dive into who Santa Claus really was, I'm like, well, we know exactly where that legend comes from and exactly how it originates. The core is Nicholas, and the different modifications that have been made to him come from other traditions and other cultures and stuff. But the core, the origin is Nicholas, this Christian. And so to kind of say, oh, we're going to skip that and we're going to say that has nothing to do with it, and all these weird modifications that came later on, we're going to choose one of those as being like the real Santa Claus. So, I mean, it's just a little weird to me, so I just kind of shrug at it. But maybe I'll read more of this, but I don't know. I at least appreciate they're going for something serious, but specifically what they're doing with Santa Claus, I don't know if I'm really into it. What I'm definitely into more is Wesley Dodds' The Sandman, #2, and this is, again, a period piece as the first issue was, and it's just going to be continuing, I think, in that time period. And it reminds me of the classic Sandman Mystery Theater series that also featured Wesley Dodds as the Sandman. I think that was written in the late 80s or mid to early 90s, something like that, and it was a very serious kind of adult take on the Sandman as a street-level crime fighter and detective, and also kind of a spooky, almost pre-Batman type of figure. And so I really like... Well, actually, pre-Batman. Was Sandman pre-Batman? I can't remember now. Anyway, I really like what they're doing here, and the tone, at least, is selling me a lot on what this book has to offer. The cliffhanger from the last issue is that Wesley Dodds' mansion was broken into and burned down, and in the wreckage, he discovers evidence that points toward whoever did this, knowing that Wesley Dodds is the Sandman, and actually stealing some of his failed experiments as he's been developing his sleeping gas. His failed experiments were these horrible, deadly gases that he would never dream of using, but someone acquired those notes, and now his genius is kind of being used to evil ends that he has no control over. And so the mystery of figuring out who did this, who knows he's the Sandman, and trying to stop them before they can do widespread, horrific harm with his experimental knowledge is really kind of the source of tension here. And I'm really digging it. Next up, Green Lantern #5, written by Jeremy Adams. And I've been wondering, as we've been getting into Adams' run here, what uniquely he might bring, given just kind of the tone and the sensibilities that he had in his run on The Flash. And I'm increasingly seeing that despite his run on The Flash being a pretty bright, optimistic kind of flavor, he can definitely dip into some darkness in Green Lantern, and that's great. The premise, basically, of this era of Green Lantern right now, anyway, is that Hal Jordan is limited to Earth. He has managed to make himself his own Green Lantern ring, but it does not function too far out of Earth's orbit, so he has to stay there. Sinestro, his great arch nemesis, is also seemingly stranded on Earth and is trying to get away by creating his own fear-based ring. And in issue 5, he's trying to basically create as much fear as possible to fuel, presumably, a new yellow ring that he can use. And he, as Hal catches up to him, makes a comment that there's something wrong with the emotional spectrum. And that was, as far as thematically, I'm not making a lot of thematic comments in this installment of Essential Issues Weekly, but this would be the one thing that kind of teases something that I think could be very promising for the future, thematically speaking. If something's going on with the emotional spectrum, something's going wrong, then that means that this story arc coming up is going to deal with emotions quite a bit. And when we're dealing with emotions in storytelling, especially talking about them as our main subject matter, there's really ripe opportunity to explore all kinds of moral and philosophical issues that are relevant to us. At the end of this issue also, although he fails to construct a yellow ring, Hal thwarting his plans enrages him so much that he seemingly is able to construct a red ring, or at the very least use anger as fuel that he will presumably use to go toe-to-toe with Hal in the next issue. So I'm very interested to see where that's going to go in issue number 6 of Green Lantern. The backup story featuring Korg, who is evidently Sinestro's bastard child that he doesn't even know he has, it seems, it's pulling me in little by little. The art style I'm still having trouble with. It just has more of a Saturday morning kind of vibe to it, a little bit simplistic, proportions are a little bit cartoony, things like that. But this time I was just like, you know what, Pater? In the past, you didn't pay near as much attention to art as you do these days. Let's get back into that mode and just focus on what the story is, what words are being said by characters. And I found that on that level, I was really increasingly getting engaged in this story and interested to see what will happen when Korg, Sinestro's long-lost son, reunites with the father that he sort of idolizes. I can only imagine that reunion is not going to go the way that Korg thinks it will. And I think this would be another point in Green Lantern. Even though it's not written by Jeremy Adams, this is a backup story written by Peter J. Tomasi, who's done great father-son writing in the Batman and Robin book in the past. And so I'm hopeful that when this reunion happens, that Tomasi will be in the driver's seat and will be able to kind of explore father-son relationships from a different angle. And so I think, again, thematically speaking, there's another really great opportunity for them to explore some worthwhile things. But anyway, very interested, definitely enjoying Green Lantern, and even enjoying the backup story more than I thought I would at this point. Finally, the Vigil number 6. This is the last issue in this failed series that I have really enjoyed so much, and you can look back at past Essential Issues Weekly content for why that is. They somewhat hastily wrapped up the story with this issue. I could kind of see possible hints that the story was being forced to be wrapped up a little more quickly than it wanted to be beginning in issue 5. And it does get tied up into a pretty nice bow here, and also I think without feeling overly rushed. And probably the greatest thing to me at this point about the Vigil is that in the last page it says the Vigil will return. And they have left our reality to enter into the bleed, this sort of space between parallel realities in the DC multiverse. And so I don't know when they're going to return. It'll probably be during some crossover event, but I would love for this team to get another chance. It seems unlikely that they will get another chance in their own book anytime soon if this book, wasn't successful. But I would love for other writers, other stories to find a way to bring the Vigil in, because it's really that sort of Doom Patrol concept of weird characters that don't really fit into normal life, that are being led by someone that is really not a great guy and actually kind of manipulates them. So it's very similar structurally to Doom Patrol, but I feel like it's being taken more seriously than I've seen Doom Patrol taken in the past. And so, maybe there could be some kind of revival of both teams by combining them somehow. I don't know. Anyway, I so want the Vigil to get another chance. So I'm at least happy to hear that they will be returning. And I will be returning as well, but I'm going to be taking a break for now to finish up some work that I need to get done and then take some time off for the holiday break. So I will be back in January, and I'll take probably about 2 weeks, first to catch up on all the December comics that I'm not going to be talking about in the meantime, and then to get caught up on the January comics that I'll be be entering into as I get back to Essential Issues Weekly, probably around mid-January or so. So that is all Essential Issues Weekly for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in January. Bye-bye.
I'd like to